Hey guys, this is part 2 of haunted places in the Chubu region. I won't be yapping away today, but there's a bit of a surprise for you at the very end of this video when my daughter walked in while I was recording and almost gave me a heart attack. So make sure you don't skip over it. Alright, let's begin. Location 5. Tojinbo. Tojinbo is located in Fukui Prefecture, and although it is extremely beautiful, it's considered to be haunted as it's a well-known suicide hotspot. I'm sure every Japanese person has heard of it at least once. There are no barricades on the cliffs, so in the past there have been accidents where people lost their balance and fell off the cliffs to their deaths. The name Tojinbo is said to come from the name of a monk who lived at Heisenji Temple, also in Katsuyama City, Fukui Prefecture. There are various theories, but one of them goes like this. The monk, whose name was Tojinbo, was known for his evil deeds and was pushed off the cliffs by his fellow monks. Sounds sus to me because I don't think monks go around killing each other. That literally goes against everything they stand for. One thing that's true about this place, though, is that many people come here to end their lives, and the locals have taken various measures such as setting up signs to discourage people from doing so. There are also special rescue phones set up where people can make a call for free so they can talk to someone. In addition, since 2017, an NPO has been using drones to monitor people who are considering suicide. The following are some of the paranormal rumors going around. Number 1. If you've ever seen a paranormal TV show or video about Tojinbo, the first thing that might come to mind is the sighting of ghosts in the telephone booth I just mentioned. There are many stories of people seeing a female ghost, including reports of the phones ringing and hearing a disjointed voice asking for help when they pick it up. Number 2. Ghosts appearing in the public restrooms is another one. According to the information I found, they only seem to appear in the women's restrooms. There have been reports where people have seen a female apparition sitting inside a stall and of doors opening and closing when no one else is in the bathroom. Number 3. There have also been reports of strange photos taken on the cliffs of Tojinbo in which a white hand can be seen stretching out from the sea all the way to the feet of the person standing on the cliff. However, I haven't been able to find any pictures like this or any other haunted photos of Tojinbo, so it's probably just another scary rumor that's going around. A few years ago, the theme song and music video for Sakai City, Fukui Prefecture was released. At about 1 minute 19 seconds into the video, the scene switches to a footage taken at Tojinbo, and there seems to be another person in an unnatural form behind the man in the center of the screen wearing a red checkered shirt. Let's take a look. To me, it looks like an actual person trying to hide behind the man because it's so clear. He might have been on the film crew and was standing behind the man in red in order to prevent any accidents from occurring. You can clearly see his shoes between the man's legs and his arm wearing a black watch resting on his knees to support himself in a crouching position. Let me know what you think. Now, before I get into any of the creepy stories, I wanted to share something else with you. The following discusses suicide, so viewer discretion is advised. When one speaks of Tojinbo being a hotspot for those who want to end their lives, it is not a joke. There have been countless newspaper articles, NPOs, and volunteers that keep an eye on everyone that visits on a daily basis. I'd like to share a bit of their story with you. Please, if you or anyone you know have suicidal ideations, please contact your local suicide hotline. Yukio Shige, a man who has come to be known as the wait-a-minute uncle of Tojinbo, was awarded the Citizen of the Year award in 2009. The Citizen of the Year award is an award that recognizes an individual for their significant and outstanding contributions to their community. It acknowledges individuals who demonstrate dedication, leadership, and a positive impact on the lives of others within their local area. It celebrates and honors individuals who go above and beyond in their community, often demonstrating exemplary volunteer work, acts of kindness, or other positive actions that benefit the community. So, who is Yukio Shige and why is he known as the wait-a-minute uncle of Tojinbo? He was born in February 1944 and is the representative of the NPO Corporation, Anthology and Editorial Bureau that resonate with the heart in Fukui Prefecture and is a former police officer. What prompted him to start up this NPO is as follows. In 1996, he was the deputy chief of the Fukui Prefectural Police Mikuni Police Station. Within his jurisdiction was Tojinbo, where an average of 25 people per year jumped off a 25-meter cliff to commit suicide, and he went patrolling as usual. Before retirement, he wanted to eliminate suicides from one of the leading scenic spots in the region. That was his ultimate goal before retirement, and he devoted himself to patrolling the area after his shift ended around sunset. That day, just before the sun set in the water's horizon in the west, he found an old man and woman on a bench, bleeding from their wrists. When he asked what was wrong, they told him to leave them be as it had nothing to do with him. Yukio didn't give up. He remained persistent, and the couple finally replied that they were running an izakaya, which is akin to a tapas bar overseas where people order small plates and drink, in Tokyo. However, it didn't go well and they were in so much debt that they had no choice but to end their lives because it was impossible to pick themselves back up after this. Yukio convinced them to rethink their actions and told them that the local government had a responsibility to protect people who were in a dire situation like them. It didn't matter that they weren't residents of Fukui Prefecture. He took them to the local town hall and left them there, feeling relieved and satisfied that he was able to show them some light at the end of the tunnel. However, a few days later, he received a letter from Nagaoka City, Niigata Prefecture. It was from the elderly couple. Yukio had assumed that the town hall would protect them, but found out through the letter that they gave the couple just enough money to travel to the next town, in essence chasing them away. The couple visited 7 other local town halls in order to get back to Tokyo, but they were treated the same way everywhere, and once again, they lost all hope. The two of them wrote that they had no energy to continue living after sleeping on the streets for days, and expressed how grateful they were for Yukio's kindness. Yukio immediately called the Nagaoka City Hall, but it was too late. The elderly couple had taken their own lives. Needless to say, he was shocked to learn that 2 human lives that were so obviously in need of help were neglected due to the lack of local government funds. In order to make a manual that stops people from thinking about suicide, he waited for retirement and in April of the following year launched an organization called Anthology and Editorial Bureau that resonate with the heart. He asked for personal experiences from people from all over the country who overcame their desire to end their lives and decided to publish them at his own expense. It then became an NPO. Before and after its publication, Yukio began recruiting volunteers to prevent suicide at Tojinbo, which led to the common name, Wait-a-Minute Uncle of Tojinbo. At the same time, he opened a cafe called Oroshimochi that resonate with the heart as a base for his activities. There he offered oroshimochi, which is a simple dish of freshly made rice cakes with grated radish on top. Since ancient times, mochi has been used to deepen family ties and relationships with neighbors, and he thought that it was a good way to somehow save the hearts of people who were suffering. He initially thought it wouldn't even last a year, but as of December 2010, the number of volunteers had increased to nearly 90. In the last 10 years, a total of 300 lives were saved. Also, the number of suicides in Tojinbo decreased annually. According to Yukio, many of the people who try to end their lives are financially stuck and have been bullied and power harassed at work. He has set up shelters with supporters from various places and continues to provide help to sort out debts, mediate re-employment, and improve the working environment. He also actively participates in lectures to appeal for suicide prevention. Even with all of this, there's one thing he's still frustrated about, and that's the fact that the local government won't set up fences to help prevent people from jumping off the cliffs, and the refusal to install surveillance cameras. He's constantly asking why that is. Like I said, I wanted to share this heartfelt topic because I thought it wouldn't do Tojinbo justice if I skipped over it. With everything going on in the world, I thank individuals like Yukio Shige and all the volunteers who try to make a difference, one life at a time. Alright, back to the creepy stuff. This is from about 10 years ago. A group of about 8 bored college students, including myself, both male and female, decided to go for a drive around 11 p.m. one night. We decided to go to a famous suicide spot in the neighboring prefecture. Since there were 8 of us, we split into 2 cars and headed to the spot with the plan to meet there, but one car got lost while the other car arrived at the location. We were bored, so the 4 people in the car that arrived first got out and decided to go for a walk. It was around 2 a.m. by this time. There's one public phone booth called Lifeline standing on the cliff for people who are contemplating unaliving themselves to make a call to talk to someone. There was a sign saying, "Call before you do it," with a phone number written on it and a phone card so anyone can make the call for free. The fluorescent light in the phone booth was flickering, and we all started walking up to it, excitedly talking about how creepy it all looked. When we got within a meter, or about 3 feet, the phone suddenly began to ring. That was all that happened. It might not sound very scary to the reader, but considering what this phone was used for, the fact that it was in the middle of the night, and that it didn't make sense for it to ring at all, we all freaked out and ran away. And no, we didn't dare pick it up. A long time ago, Nippon TV had a comedy show called Takeshi's Genki ga Deru TV, in which a comedian, Toshiro Shimazaki, who got laughs by dressing up as a caveman named Adamo-chan, had a segment where he tried to jump off Tojinbo into the ocean while dressed as Adamo-chan. In the end, he was too scared to jump, but the director didn't mind because it was funny in and of itself, and the staff started editing the segment to broadcast it. That's when they saw something terrifying in the footage of the camera crew who were on a boat offshore ready to capture Adamo-chan diving off the cliff. What they saw were countless arms coming out of the water. The tape got shelved and was never aired on TV. This happened during one summer break when I was in high school. We had spent most of our vacation working part-time jobs and not having much fun. We were trying to save as much money as possible because we were into motorcycles and each wanted to buy one. 4 of us managed to save enough to get the bike we wanted, and to celebrate, we decided to go on a day trip on the last day of our break. We wanted a scenic view, so the obvious choice was to go somewhere in the countryside and chose to go to Tojinbo. We knew it was a well-known haunted spot, but it was also a beautiful tourist destination. Plus, we were going during the day, so thought nothing of it. That morning, we met up and set off towards Fukui Prefecture. It took us 2 hours to get there. We were hyped up driving our brand new motorcycles and proceeded to take a bunch of photos in various places. Then, one of my friends started saying that he wanted to go down the cliff to where it meets the water. We told him it was too dangerous, but he didn't heed our warning and went anyway. When he got down, he yelled up at us to take some pictures of him. Nothing happened while we were there. We walked around like tourists for 2 to 3 hours before deciding to head home. None of us drove recklessly on our way back either, and we stopped by a family restaurant before going our separate ways. The next day was the first day back at school. I sat amongst my classmates while the principal gave a speech when I realized that the friend that went down the cliff the day before was absent. It was a few minutes later when the principal mentioned my friend's name, and he proceeded to tell us that he had gotten into a motorcycle accident on his way back from the restaurant, and that he had died. I couldn't believe it. I felt really depressed for about a month and finally had the courage to look at all the photos we took on that day. It was hard to see us together, him smiling and all of us having a good time. As I swiped through my phone, I got to the ones I took of him when he was at the bottom of the cliff and immediately felt my blood run cold. In one of them, there was what looked like a faint hand reaching out for his legs. I don't know if this has anything to do with the accident he later got into, but I can't help but think that it does. And I deleted the picture right away. This happened when I was a university student. I worked part-time and saved up as much as I could in order to travel around Japan. That day, I'd planned to visit Tojinbo. Although I knew many people who wanted to end their lives went there, I was fascinated with the place after seeing photos of the rock formations in a travel magazine, and I really wanted to see them with my own eyes. My first visit to Tojinbo was absolutely breathtaking. The sound of the waves crashing against the cliff, the smell of the salty air, and the blue sea and sky. I felt it all with my entire being. I was so happy to be there and took many pictures all over the place. Afterwards, as I was looking out at the sea, my mind went blank, my consciousness detached from me. I didn't faint. I don't know how to describe it. I could see and hear, and I was also able to move. It was the strangest feeling I'd ever experienced. It was like my soul left my body. I found myself walking slowly towards the edge of the cliff, and I didn't feel any fear. I don't know why I was walking towards the edge, but I felt that I had to. It felt so natural. Suddenly, someone grabbed me by my arm and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I felt like my soul zapped back into my body, and I instantly felt a tremendous amount of fear. My legs buckled and I almost fell, but the stranger helped me and walked me back to the bench. He had assumed that I wanted to jump off the cliff. I had no such intentions, but I can clearly see why it looked like that to an outsider. Thinking back on it, maybe I fell into some kind of trance when I was staring out at the sea and became suggestible. And maybe the many spirits called me to join them. If that kind stranger wasn't there to help me, I'm certain I would have. Anyway, that definitely made me regret going there. A few years ago, my family and I went on a 3-day, 2-night trip to Fukui Prefecture. We decided that if we were going to Fukui Prefecture, we definitely had to drop by Tojinbo. But to be honest, I wasn't too chuffed about it because of all the rumors I'd heard, like the presence of many orbs, disjointed voices coming from nowhere, and other spiritual disturbances. But we were there as a family, and I didn't want to ruin it for everyone else just because of my irrational fear, so I agreed that it would be a good idea. When I got out of the car, I felt terribly cold. Not the kind of cold you feel from the sea breeze, but something that resonated much deeper. The world in front of me was spinning and my ears started ringing. I felt so incredibly sick and terrified that I let my excited family go and explore without me while I waited in the car. They got back after about 30 minutes and we finally headed back to the inn we were staying at. It was during this drive that my premonition that something bad might happen happened. We were driving past a bamboo forest near Tojinbo and I was completely captivated by its beauty. I took my phone out and started to record the forest as we drove past. As my sister, who was sitting beside me, and I were looking at my screen at what was being recorded, I saw a woman with long hair wearing bright red clothes appear in the forest. I yelped and asked whether my sister and parents saw her, but they shook their heads. I stopped recording and went back to the footage to show them what I'd seen, but there was no sign of her in the saved video. Obviously, none of them believed me, but I know what I saw, and I believe it was a manifestation of all the vengeful spirits that were in Tojinbo. And I say this because, through all that hair that was covering her face, I caught a sliver of it, and it looked truly demonic. I would like to post about the scariest place I've ever been to, and that's Tojinbo. I didn't go there because I wanted to see the sights or for kimodameshi. I went because my younger brother lived in Fukui Prefecture and I was there visiting him. It was in the afternoon on a weekday, and by the time I got there, I was busting to go pee, so as soon as I parked the car, I ran to find the toilet. I saw the public toilet sign on the Tojinbo Tower and ran right in. I could have just used the urinal, but as if being drawn further in, I went into the furthest stall to relieve myself. The first thing I saw was a hanger hanging from a stainless steel rod above the luggage rack. It had been twisted and bent out of shape. What it looked like to me was that someone had tried to hang themselves with it but had failed. I immediately left the stall with a mixture of fear and nausea, and once outside, all these suicide prevention messages jumped into my eyes. They were posted on signs and phone booths all around Tojinbo. When I told my brother about it, he told me that every couple of weeks or so, the tide would wash up a body of someone who had jumped to their deaths. But after what I saw in the bathroom, it's clear that people end their lives by other means as well, and I believe I was subconsciously led into that stall that day. This is a story about a trip I took to an onsen or hot spring in Fukui with a senior colleague from work. We had some time before check-in, so we walked around Tojinbo before heading back to the hotel. The hotel itself wasn't what you would call beautiful, but the rooms had just been renovated and the scent of wood was very pleasant and soothing. The onsen, which was out in the open, was close to the sea, and we really enjoyed sitting in the hot water, listening to the sound of waves in the dark. And don't get me started on the food. It was so delicious with many luxurious crab dishes. I was so tired after a full meal that I fell asleep before my friend did, but woke up in the middle of the night. My friend had nodded off with the bedside lamp on, so I turned it off, turned to my side, and began drifting off to sleep again. It was a while later when I woke up to a heavy weight on my right arm. It felt like the weight of a small child, and I experienced what people call sleep paralysis. I couldn't move a single muscle nor open my eyes. The thing is, it's not my first time experiencing sleep paralysis. In fact, I often get it when I travel, so when I do, I just think to myself, here we go again. What I believe visited me that night was maybe a child who was forced to jump off the cliff with his or her parent. Soon after, I just fell back asleep. When I woke up in the morning, everything was back to normal. As I was enjoying a delicious, sumptuous breakfast, I told my friend about my sleep paralysis, but she told me she slept through the night peacefully. I usually just fall back asleep after a short while, so I'm not overly scared when I'm actually experiencing sleep paralysis. But when I think back on all those times and wonder what kind of things I would have seen if I ever opened my eyes, well, I always feel a cold trickle run down my spine. This one's a doozy and happened to me when I was working part-time at a photo shop. It was about 7 or 8 years ago. I had left my parents' house in the Tohoku region and was staying with a friend in Yokohama. My parents weren't sending me any money and I wasn't working that many hours, so I was pretty low on cash, but even so, I always had money to have fun. Never mind paying the rent and utilities on time. I decided to take 10 days off at the end of the year to go travel. My itinerary was to go down to Kyushu first, then travel north, passing through the Chugoku, Shikoku, Kinki, and Hokuriku regions, stop by my parents' house, and finally return to Yokohama. With my camera in hand, I took a ton of photos, including Akiyoshi-do, Izumi Taisha, the Tottori Sand Dunes, Doga Onsen, various temples and shrines in Kyoto, and Tojinbo. After coming back to Yokohama, I went straight back to work, trying to make up for the hole in my bank account. I was basically down to zero in my savings, but luckily, the beginning of the year is the busiest time of year, so I was able to put in a lot of hours. There were a lot of people who wanted to get their photos developed, having gone back home for the new year and celebrating the occasion at shrines, etc. And on top of that, there was a half-price sale on all printing, so it was hectic all around. Part of my job involved checking the prints. I had to reject photos with technical errors, like the appearance of black areas on the right side. It wasn't too bad because I didn't have to check the negatives. On top of that, many of them were pretty interesting to sort through, especially when it involved photos of cute girls or somewhat X-rated ones. I know I sound like a perv, but that's sort of human nature, isn't it? So anyway, as I was checking through the thousands of pictures, I suddenly had a sense of déjà vu. I looked closely at it. It was a photo of Izumo Taisha, and I nodded to myself thinking, no wonder, I took similar photos when I visited, and kept going through this person's pile. After flipping through a few more, my heart started to beat a tad faster. There were photos of Akiyoshi-do, the Tottori Sand Dunes, and all the other places I had visited at the end of the year. It felt like more than a mere coincidence. I went through the pictures a second time, and that's when I noticed something else. They were all taken at the exact same time I was there. It matched my own itinerary to a T. At first I thought they were my own, but my memory card was still in my camera, and there were random pictures amongst them of places I hadn't been to. But just in case, I looked through my own pictures. And guess what? The places that overlapped were all taken on the same days. I started to freak out a bit at this point. Was someone stalking me? I couldn't think of anyone who'd want to. It had to be a coincidence, but it was creepy nonetheless. The other weird thing was that all the pictures were a bit off. Usually when you travel, you take nice pictures, right? You try to encapsulate the beauty and uniqueness of the place you visited. Well, all of these were so random and I couldn't really tell what the person was trying to capture. It's as if they were trying to take a picture of something, but that something wasn't quite there. A few of them were of buildings and such, but in general, they were all off. That's the only word I have to describe it. Off. I examined them closely and made sure I wasn't in any of them, and thankfully, I wasn't. The doubling of dates and places ended at Tojinbo, but I guess that's because I stopped taking pictures after I left Tojinbo. It was really creepy, but I decided to push my thoughts aside and forget about it. After this, I came across 2 pictures with strange apparitions in them, and then a bunch taken of a clearly mentally unstable individual. I decided I didn't want to continue seeing into the private lives of people after this and quit my job a while later. No one had come to claim those photos even on my last day of work. Just want to add that we usually call the person's contact number if they don't come to pick up their photos for a while. The number was disconnected and I don't remember the person who actually came into the shop because we were so busy. I don't know if they ever showed up after I quit, and nothing weird has happened since. Like I said, I'd like to think it was a series of coincidences, but the travel itinerary I had was quite convoluted and I took roundabout ways to get to each destination, so there's still a dark, nagging feeling at the back of my mind. Location 6. Oshima. Along with Tojinbo, Oshima is also a famous haunted spot in Fukui Prefecture. It's an island that is part of the Echizen Kaga Kaigan Quasi-National Park. It's relatively small with an area of about 10.2 hectares and a circumference of about 2 kilometers or 1.2 miles, and can be reached by walking or cycling across the Oshima Bridge that spans from the Yasujima fishing port. There are a few intriguing places on the island. Number 1. There are several rocks on Oshima called magnetic rocks, which are so magnetic that they can cause compasses to go haywire when placed nearby. It's said that the magnetic field was created by lightning strikes, but the truth is unknown. Number 2. There's a small spring of fresh water called Uriwari no Mizu, even though it's really close to the coast. The water is so cold even in summer that if you place a watermelon into it, it will crack open. Number 3. The Ominato Shrine. It's a place where Minamoto no Yoshitsune, who was the commander of the Minamoto clan, purportedly stopped by on his way to safety and donated his kabuto helmet. The original shrine was burnt down by soldiers of Oda Nobunaga, and the current one was built in 1621. Both the main hall and the worship hall are designated as cultural properties of Fukui Prefecture. So, while Oshima is a tourist spot and a power spot, it's also a spiritual place on par with Tojinbo, and some people say it's even scarier than Tojinbo. Let's briefly go over some of the rumors about this place. Number 1. To get to Oshima, you have to walk over the Oshima Bridge that stretches from Yasujima fishing port. It's a bit long at 224 meters or 735 feet in length, and it's believed that if you turn back halfway across the bridge, you'll be cursed or bring spirits with you. It's said that the bodies of those who jumped off Tojinbo are carried away by the ocean currents and get caught on the bridge, so their spirits wander around the bridge. On a clear day, the view is beautiful, but at night, the bridge turns into a creepy place where you can capture strange apparitions if you take pictures there. So, if you ever visit, make sure you cross over to the other side without turning back, just to be on the safe side. Number 2. The most famous story is probably this one. Don't go around the island counterclockwise. Apparently, if you do so, you'll be dragged into the sea and die, or you'll be cursed and get into an accident, but there hasn't been any cases where this has actually happened. The theory behind this strange rumor is that if you go around the island counterclockwise, you end up in Ominato Shrine at the end, and people believe it's best to greet the gods when you first get onto the island and not at the end. If you're superstitious and don't want to get cursed, I recommend you to go around clockwise. Number 3. Near Oshima, there is a tiny tunnel about 20 meters or 65 feet long called Oshima Tunnel. This tunnel has a crucial difference from ordinary ones. There's a hole in the middle of the tunnel that leads to a 2.2 meter or 7 foot tall Kannon statue, which is a Buddhist deity of mercy and compassion. There's a rumor that if you see the eyes of the Kannon statue glow red, you'll have an accident. Some people have apparently also seen a female spirit appear next to the statue, which is why the tunnel is believed to be haunted. It's unclear whether anyone has actually had an accident there, but those of near accidents have been shared on some online platforms. Considering there's a Kannon statue there, it's probably best not to visit just for fun. Number 4. One of the rumors surrounding Oshima is that you can take haunted photos of hands reaching out from the sea. I couldn't find actual pictures like that circulating on the internet, but it's said that the bodies of people who jumped off Tojinbo are often found on Oshima, so it's definitely a possibility. I live in Fukuoka and I've been to Tojinbo many times, but I'll tell you about the one time I felt something paranormal there. At the time, I was in my 4th year at a local university and had just received a job offer. So, I went with some friends on our annual tour of Tojinbo and Oshima. We used to do stupid things back then. On that day, we made one guy, he was always the butt of our jokes in our group, to get completely naked and walk around the area. But it was actually November, the height of autumn, and quite cold to be honest. I managed to convince him to wait in the car until the rest of our group showed up, 15 others in total, and then he'd jump out of the car and run around naked. That was the plan, until it started to rain. Pretty damn hard. Leaving the naked friend in the car, my 2 other friends and I walked to the bridge of Oshima, saying maybe we should call off this little stunt of ours. As we were looking out at the ocean, we saw someone walking down the bridge from the other end. We could see them even though it was dark and raining because they were dressed all in white. We asked one another if that was a person and just stared as they continued to walk in the middle of the bridge, getting closer and closer. The entire atmosphere was eerie and none of us could move a muscle. We were paralyzed. When it got within 50 meters or about 150 feet from us, we could clearly see that it was a person, which freaked us out even more. That was when I heard one of my friends start running, which made me snap out of it, and we all ran back into the car where my naked friend was sitting there with his coat on. He asked us what was wrong, but the 3 of us who'd just witnessed this person walking down the bridge could only yell at the driver to hurry the hell up. On our way out of there, we crossed paths with our other friends who were heading over to the meeting spot. We didn't want to go back, so we called them and told them to meet us at the closest convenience store. Once the 4 of us got there, we were still in a light panic mode as we waited for the others to catch up. When they arrived, we asked if they saw anyone there, but they replied in the negative. That was strange because the person would have been on this side of the bridge by the time my friends got there to do a U-turn. But no, apparently they didn't see anyone there. Anyway, I dropped my wallet running back to the car and lost my license and credit card, so it was an all-around bad experience. I haven't been back to Oshima since. I apologize for my poor writing, but I wanted to share my story with you. It's from when I was a 3rd-year university student. I had finished most of my assignments and had more free time, so I decided to go on a trip to Fukui Prefecture with my high school classmates. We live in Aichi Prefecture. We were driving north and traveling aimlessly, hoping to find a nice place to go. As we approached the Sea of Japan and looked for tourist spots, we found that a place called Tojinbo was famous in the area. I'd never heard of this place before, so I was also clueless about the fact that there were lots of people who go there to unalive themselves. After walking around Tojinbo, we found out that there was a place called Oshima next to it, so we decided to go there next. To get there, we went through a small tunnel, and even though it was summer, it was really chilly in there. I drove through it while thinking to myself that something was off about this tunnel when I suddenly felt someone staring at me, and it was fleeting, but I thought I saw a pair of red eyes. When we popped out the other end, I stopped short of getting to the actual island and told my friend that I wasn't feeling good and didn't want to proceed. She must have felt the same because she readily agreed, and we turned back without exploring Oshima. Before heading home, we decided to check out a nearby souvenir shop. As we were driving, there was a large bumping noise and the nose of the car tilted down at a 45-degree angle. I was the one driving and I wasn't speeding or anything. I was so sure I was driving along a regular road, but realized at that point that I had ventured onto a path that no car could pass, and we were teetering on the edge of a huge drop with the ocean down below. Lucky for us, the car was in a position where I could still reverse safely, and we were able to get back onto the main road, but it gives me shivers just thinking that if I had been going any faster, we could have driven right off the edge and we would most likely be dead by now. Needless to say, I was full of nerves until I was back home. It wasn't until a while later that I discovered there were a few haunted places in Fukui Prefecture, and when I looked it up, one of them was the Oshima tunnel that I had driven through that day. I read that if you go around Oshima counterclockwise, you'll die, and for some reason there's a T-junction in a nearby tunnel beyond which there's a Kannon statue. Also, if you see a woman in the tunnel, you'll have an accident on your way back. Chills went down my spine when I read that. Those two glowing red eyes that I saw in the tunnel. Maybe it wasn't just my imagination. I still have a really hard time understanding how I could have almost driven off the edge of a cliff when I was so sure that I was driving down a regular road. It just doesn't make any sense. The next two stories have been shared by the same user. The first one is about when him and his friends went to Tojinbo, and the second one is when they went to Oshima. This is a story from the summer when I was a third-year university student. I was drinking with my friends M and E at an izakaya that day. We were having fun talking about the usual silly things like gambling and telling dirty jokes, but when we ran out of things to talk about, E mentioned a TV show he had seen the day before. It was a special episode about the supernatural where some celebrities went to a haunted spot. E apparently wasn't impressed and called it a waste of time watching them scream and cry on TV. It made me question why he watched it if he thought it was so stupid, but then an idea popped into my head. I told them we should go on a kimodameshi or a test of courage somewhere. M agreed and suggested going to Tojinbo. We were already pretty drunk, so we figured it was a brilliant idea. We called our other friend S so he could drive us, and soon after, we were on our way to Tojinbo. We arrived at around 2 in the morning. All of us except S, who was driving, continued drinking in the car, so we were all in high spirits. Tojinbo is a famous tourist destination, so there's a large parking lot, but since it was well past midnight, there was only one other car there besides ours. From the parking lot, we walked up the hill lined with souvenir shops, and just as we were about to get to the famous cliffs, we were suddenly hit with a strong urge to pee, so we decided to head to the restroom first. On the way, we crossed paths with a woman, and I thought it strange that she was taking a walk by herself at such an hour, but I was really busting to pee, so that thought was quickly interrupted. After we all relieved ourselves, we started walking towards the cliff when we came by a public phone booth. Everyone had mobile phones now, so it was a rare sight, and M, who's a local, proudly explained that it was installed so that people who were contemplating dying could call their loved ones in a last attempt to save themselves. There were many 10-yen coins piled up so anyone could call for free. We all got weirdly excited about this revelation, and seeing the money sitting there made it that much more real that our excitement skyrocketed. We decided to take a picture, and to keep up with the purpose of this phone booth, we thought it would be a good idea to pretend like we were making a phone call. No one actually wanted to be the one to do it, because I guess deep down we knew it wasn't something to be taken lightly, and we were scared we might capture a ghost or something. Anyway, we played rock, paper, scissors, and I, unfortunately, lost. I reluctantly entered the phone booth, looked at the pile of 10-yen coins, and had some real second thoughts about fooling around like this, but I was there and there was no turning back. I picked up the receiver and put it to my ear and posed. My 3 friends laughed at me and took pictures with their phones and disposable cameras. Thank God there was nothing freaky in the photos taken with any of our phones. As for the disposable camera, we had to wait to develop it at a later date. E, M, and S all wanted to take one 10-yen coin home as a souvenir, but I felt that that was taking it too far and I dissuaded them from doing so. The photo session ended, and this time we headed towards the cliffs. Here we passed another person. This time it was a man in his 60s walking with a flashlight in his hand. He said good evening to us, and we said good evening back. M immediately told us that he was probably someone from the Suicide Prevention NPO. We didn't see anyone else after that and arrived at the rocks. Tojinbo is famous for its strange rock formations called pyroxene andesite columnar jointing and is apparently extremely rare. We had a hard time walking over the rugged rocks because we only had the moonlight to rely on. 3 of us were drunk and we were wearing sandals. We were more afraid of tripping and getting hurt than falling into the sea. Once we were at the edge, we were scared, but we also went silent for the first time in ages as we looked out at the majestic power of nature. The sound of the waves crashing on the rocks, the pitch-black sea visible in the moonlight. I'd never been so awe-stricken by nature. It felt like I was going to get sucked into it. It would have been good if this story ended here, but we were stupid, drunk college students, so we decided to see how far down the cliff we could get. The rocks were rugged, so it was surprisingly easy to get down. I think most of us got down about 2 to 3 meters or 6 to 10 feet. We were shouting and making a fool of ourselves when suddenly we were being lit up by a light. We must have looked like deer caught in headlights as we stopped what we were doing and turned towards the source. It was the man from earlier. I thought we were going to get in trouble for making so much noise and doing dangerous stunts, but I was wrong. The man asked,
"Hey boys, did you see a woman here earlier? In her 40s or so. She was wearing a white cardigan."
I knew who he meant straight away and told him we walked past her in front of the toilet. The man looked troubled and asked,
"Does the white car with the Fukui license plate belong to you?"
When we said yes, he looked even more troubled. He said in a quieter voice as if talking to himself that he was going to go look for her again, told us not to make too much noise and to be careful, then walked off. As I stood there wondering what that was all about, S, the only sober one, seemed to have a revelation. He said,
"The woman we saw earlier might have jumped off. The old man asked about the car, right? The other car in the parking lot is probably his, so how did that woman get here without any transportation? She could have taken a taxi, but why would she come here at this time? It's strange for a woman to be walking alone in a place like this at this hour. That man seemed to be looking for her, and he seems like a local. Guys, I think she came here to jump off."
S said this all at once, his face turning pale. I tried to rationalize everything with my drunken brain. The woman was just taking a walk and she called a taxi and had already gone home. Or maybe she's still around and the man simply hasn't found her yet. There were some other ideas that popped into my head, but I also couldn't ignore what S said because a lot of things seemed to be aligned with his words. The fact that this is Tojinbo, the fact that it was past 3 a.m. now, and the fact that the man truly looked troubled and worried. I looked at M and E. They also looked pale. We were all hit hard with what S had suggested, and it made me feel sick. After this, we promptly left and barely spoke as we headed home. I looked in the newspapers and online to see if I could find any articles of a woman who had jumped off of Tojinbo but couldn't find anything. Apparently, that sort of information isn't made public in order to prevent more people from coming and doing the same thing. So, we don't know if that woman jumped that day, but I think it's best not to go to a place like that lightly or just for fun, and definitely don't do stupid shit like we did that night. Oh, and if you're curious about the photo we took with the disposable camera in the phone booth, I'm happy to tell you that they were all perfectly normal. At the time, I was living in Fukui Prefecture for work. I was so busy that I couldn't go back to my parents' house even during the Obon holiday, but my friends came to visit. E from Tokyo, S from Kanazawa, and M who also worked in Fukui. We were the same members that went to visit Tojinbo as university students. We had pizza delivered to my house, drank some booze, and complained about being noobs in the real world. After we shared our woes, we started talking about our university days, and so naturally, we talked about our visit to Tojinbo. Then M, who is from Fukui, told us about Oshima. He said that the bodies of people who jumped off Tojinbo washed up there, and that it was even more haunted and scarier than Tojinbo. Some of what he told us that sounded like utter bullshit included things like, it's an island where certain gods live, that you have to walk the perimeter of the island once you enter, that you would die if you didn't walk around it clockwise, and that you could take a lot of paranormal pictures. Well, I was drunk and all I could think about was going there. We must have all been thinking the same thing because a short while later, we were in M's car heading to Oshima. M wasn't drinking that night because he wanted to show off his brand new luxury car worth just under 3 million yen or $210,000. I remember being annoyed that I wasn't allowed to smoke in his car. Anyway, we arrived at our destination, Oshima, about an hour and a half later. To my surprise, there were about 20 other cars parked in the parking lot. It was well past midnight, so I wondered why there were so many cars, but the mystery was soon solved. Fishing. Oshima is an island with a pedestrian bridge connecting it to the mainland, and on the bridge there were about 20 people fishing from it. I felt disappointed, to be honest. The bridge itself is painted red, and in the moonlight it had the potential to look quite creepy. But fishermen? That killed the entire vibe. We'd come all the way here hoping to get scared, so it was a real letdown. Anyway, we still decided to cross the bridge and began walking towards Oshima, and about halfway across, we realized there were no more fishermen around. It was almost as if there was an invisible boundary. I wasn't worried about it at all, just thinking that maybe the fish were closer to the mainland and continued to walk. But I couldn't deny that now that we were all alone, a sudden sense of fear kicked in. It even felt like the moonlight had gotten weaker, and I started to feel extremely lonely and anxious. The four of us were together, but we'd gone silent after the fishermen disappeared. A while later, S exclaimed that he couldn't go any further, turned around and ran back towards the car. I'd never seen him run that fast, and we yelled at him for being a coward and a traitor, but stayed put. I could totally understand his sudden need to escape because I felt the same way. The feeling of unease grew stronger with each step. I didn't even realize when it happened, but noticed that E, M, and I were all holding hands. I don't think I could have moved forward without doing so. Looking down at our arms, we all had goosebumps all over. As we got closer to the end of the bridge, a torii gate came into view. A gate that separates the world of gods from that of ours. It looked terrifying in the moonlight. The atmosphere had completely changed, and it felt like the island was warning us not to come any closer. We all stopped dead in our tracks. We were so freaking scared that there was no way we could walk through the torii gate and onto the island. My body wouldn't move even if I had wanted to go, as if every cell in my body was preventing me from doing so. I was still holding E and M's hands, and it was drenched with sweat. We stood there for a good minute or two, trying to move forward but not being able to. Finally, M broke free and started running away, and this time E and I were hot on his heels. At the parking lot, S was having a smoke under one of the lampposts, and I felt such a huge sense of comfort that I was back in a lighted area. We all got into the car when we heard M yelling from the driver's seat. He turned to S and yelled at him that his joke wasn't funny. How dare he do this to his new car? We all sat there with blank expressions, wondering what he was going on about. I had to get closer to what M was pointing at to see what it was. There were 2 white and oily handprints on his windshield. S swore it wasn't him, and I believed him. We got out, and to prove he didn't do it, he put his hand next to the handprints. They were much smaller. It likely belonged to a woman with small hands, or even a child, and it obviously didn't belong to E, M, or myself. Could it have been one of the fishermen? But they were all men, and none of us saw any women or children around the entire night. Just to make sure, E and I walked back out and looked around. Nope, no women or children. So whose handprints were these? M squirted the windshield liquid and used his wipers to wash them off, but we were all left feeling extremely creeped out. On the way back, we kept telling M to drive slowly, and we got home safely. In the end, we never figured out whether those handprints was a prank or something supernatural. But guys, be careful when visiting haunted places. It probably doesn't sound like much of a warning from someone like me because I keep going to those places, but I seriously don't think it's a place to go to lightly. And by the way, I haven't been back to Oshima since. That's it, guys. Now I'll play you the part where my daughter scared the shit out of me. My 3 friends laughed at me and took pictures with their phones and disposable cameras. Oh my goodness, that scared me so much. My daughter, she's still little. She's 4 years old. Anyway, she walked into the room so quietly that I didn't hear the door at all. I'm reading the stories off of my laptop, you know, and my daughter has curly hair, so it's quite wild, you know. Anyway, I see a small head with explosive curly hair, like just the silhouette, reflected on my laptop screen, slowly moving from right to left. And it freaked me out. Oh my goodness. You can hear me say in Japanese, びっくりした, which means you surprised me or you scared me. Anyway, I hope it makes you laugh, and I think it's a good way to end this creepy video. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Thanks for tuning in, and see you soon for the 3rd installment of the Chubu region. Cheers. びっくりした